barbed wire on it. So all those things too, there are many schools we now have put in place. But all in all, we should entrust our safety.
God. And all of us, maybe just as a way of adding to your words, all of us should continually see ourselves as stakeholders with collective responsibility in ensuring safety and quality education. Quite some strong points have been raised this morning. All stakeholders, school owners, teachers, parents, governments, policymakers, everybody has a major role to play. And it's a collective responsibility then, but all of us should see investment in building lives as a priceless investment. So much has been said this morning, but it's like the emphasis should go more to the parents as well, that money is not everything. In a society where our value system has become so wrong, and right now we seem to be a society of a people who are looking for, who hope that there could be shortcuts to success. Engineer Mrs. Bisola said this morning, but there is no shortcut to success. So as schools are resuming, it is the hope that all stakeholders will remember our responsibility to save our society. It's unfortunate that in this society we have evolved a very wrong mentality that you can do anything and get away with it.
Imagine.
So now it becomes the responsibility of every one of us that life is not designed like that. Whatever goes wrong comes wrong, and whatever we sow, we will reap. So if it is true that there's nothing like getting away with it, we need to remember it's another season for us to raise leaders of tomorrow. And this is where I draw the curtain on AM.CAFE this morning. Special thanks to our guest once again, proprietress engineer Mrs. Lara Bisola Odeyemi of Legendary. Okay, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate you. Special thanks to the contributors behind the scene at the VTRMCR, the producer Olushola Ogunle. We appreciate your efforts. The executive producer Olaskomi. My name is Benga Famino. Congratulating everybody and welcoming everybody back to school and wishing you a successful stay in school. So we come your way again tomorrow with another edition of AM.CAFE. Wishing you a good day. Goodbye and God bless.
Still from the Punch newspaper, Buhari to launch 100 billion naira. Beg your pardon. Buhari to launch $100 billion, not naira, dollars, SDG financial framework. National Assembly resumes 2023 budget. CJN confirmation top agenda. NDLEA seizes 194 billion naira cocaine in Lagos. Arrest 5. Nigeria's debt hits 42 trillion naira amid revenue crisis. PDP autumn warns Atiku, Fayose sues for peace. Still from the Punch, I have these headings. Custom sells impounded vehicles as scraps. Auctioneers kick. SANS react as Evans ex-soldiers back 21 years in prison. Corruption ruling Nigeria, first subsidy organized crime, and many others. Joining me in the studio at this moment is consultant Sonny Ajayi. You're welcome on the program.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you so much.
Reading the newspaper at this moment,
Yes.
let's look at this caption from the Punch newspaper. Queen Elizabeth funeral.
Yes.
World leaders over 4 billion audience bid farewell.
Yeah.
How will you describe this leader?
Yes.
Is she a great leader? And what lesson could be deduced from the mammoth respect paid
Okay.
to her?
Okay. Thank you, sir, for having me here. I think culturally, we're not supposed to speak ill of the dead. Because at that point in time, prayers cannot even help the dead, not to talk about comments. Be that as it may, Queen Elizabeth, is one of the greatest monarchs and the greatest leaders that Nigeria will always remember. She's the only one, as the head of government, to have spent 28 days in Nigeria. 28 days on a stretch in Nigeria. And that showed the kind of love she had for Nigeria. And when Her Majesty, government was leaving Nigeria as an independent sovereign nation, it left Nigeria the same way Britain was and the same way Great Britain is to this day. That is, in a confederation whereby regions are administered by their own premiers, and regions, are able to control their resources independently, and regions are able to do whatever they wanted to do on their own, and they grew on their own. To the extent that the Western region was so powerful economically, to be lending funds to today's Dubai. And to the extent it couldn't pay, and that debt has to be written out. To the extent that Western region was able to have television before France. To the extent that Western region was the first, region, or even in a nation in Africa that had 23-story building. I'm talking about Cocoa House, 23 floors, and on and on and on and on and on. So when you look at a leader like that, who was able to say you're independent, and not even that at all, she was able to say, okay, if Rhodesians now decide to call their country Zimbabwe, they can go ahead. If Gold Coast decide to, change it to Ghana, they could go ahead. And if Nigerians see the, Nigerian people decide that the name given to them by the Secretary of Lord Lugard should still be the name that is the people of Niger, so be it. So for me, and if, for instance, also, India at independence, 1947, consisted of one, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and they decided to go their different ways, so be it. So, when you see a monarch like this, who has, the kind of authoritarian, leadership, but decided on her own to say, listen, no, I'm going to be democratic. I think it's a leader that we continue to remember as long as the world exists. So So to me, she was and she remains an evergreen, memory.
And a role model to other leaders.
Yeah, a great model, particularly to Nigerian leaders, because when you check right now, what were the leaders of Nigeria, I'm talking about the center now, we're able to say the bequeath of their nation by the time they leave in. Only a few can talk, that's, oh yeah, I led this country well. One of them is Gowon, the other one is Olusegun Obasanjo, And then, I'm still searching. I do not know, because what I'm talking about legacies that transcend generations.
All right, it connotes that when leaders rule well, they are worthy of double honors. People will want to appreciate them.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's go to examine these headings from the Punch newspaper. Nigeria's debt hits 42 trillion naira amid revenue crisis. This is worrisome, and some people say instead of the nation to be saving for the rainy day, now we are recording more debt. What are the likely consequences and the way forward out of this mess?
Well, everything has to do with leadership. We have not learned any lesson in this country. Because if you want to choose a leader should be an all-round generalist. A leader should be a managerial economist. A leader should be a physician. A leader should be a professor. A leader should be able to be a politician, that has egalitarian policies. So what I'm saying, in essence, is that a leader must know, more than the led. But where the reverse is the problem, then we're just going to be going in a circle. And that's what is happening to Nigeria. Because for me, a President Olusegun Obasanjo came around and was able to liquidate, most of our debts and left a clean slate for the next, administration. But since then, things have been going comatose and keeps on going comatose. And again, Nigeria is a country blessed with so many brains. If you go abroad, like the United States of America, like, England, you find out that most of, the people of color doing great professions are Nigerians. But unfortunately, back home, they won't be used. Because why? Is it that they are Yorubas, or they are Jokuns, or they are this and they are that? And to them here, brain does not really matter. So for me, when they say our debt is so, we are just kidding. Because we are borrowing now, to finance our budget. And if we are borrowing to finance our budget, then you should know, what we're talking about. So we are now borrowing now to finance our budget. And when we are even borrowing, we don't go to the right money market to borrow. We're now going to Chinese banks who are not just lending, they are investing. And they are trying to recognize, nations, because they felt that when the scramble for Africa was on, they were nowhere to be found. At that point in time, too, they were so wretched. To the extent that Nigeria was even more powerful than China. I've been to Peking, China. The majority of the Chinese were riding bicycles. And so there are more bicycle lanes and tracks in China than vehicles. So they could have never thought in their entire lives that they will one day, they will now be the masters of Nigeria. So, and then, what are the Chinese doing? Very clever, very smart. They say, listen, we're not going to lend you. We're going to develop infrastructure.
Okay.
Yeah, for you on a loan. And that loan repayable with ridiculous interest.
So when loan is obtained, it should be earmarked for developmental projects. That's what you are trying to have.
No, for Chinese infrastructure.
Okay, what about the country?
On the needs of that nation.
Okay.
And all the guys that are going to be working there at the top echelon will not be Chinese. All the inputs, whatever, will now come from China.
Should that knowledge or idea be applicable in the country?
Well, it's a bad policy. When you go to a place like Kenya now, go to places all around the world that have taken Chinese loans and they are not able to pay. They've taken over their infrastructure. Some now they're talking about their ports. Some they're talking about their airport. Some they're talking about this and that, and the rest of them like that. And then when we even borrow this money from China, and we save money now to develop a rail, to another country, then I don't think we really know what we're doing when we are unable as a nation, to produce a single refinery that's functional. Guys like me have been talking all over that. Listen, in America, we have more modular refineries than major refineries. And none of the refineries in America or in Europe belongs to the government. They are individual, ownership. Okay? And then when you now have some smart guys in the Niger Delta creeks who are now doing their own, instead of us now to try to develop that technology, we criminalize these guys. And we are so happy to say we have destroyed so many and we're importing, So I think most of our policies always somersault. We don't really sit down. And why we are having all these problems, because we don't use the right brains that God has given us.
Okay, this caption says, oil subsidy is organized crime.
Yes.
Coming from Peter Obi.
What?
Focusing on what you are trying to say. Do you see it as an organized crime? And what is the way forward? How do we summon the challenges
for me,
emanating from this?
Yes, sir.
Policy?
For me, I think that, he knows more than I do. I think they should have shown him now so many classified information, this and that. Again, I also think that this is what they say before they get to power. And by the time they get to power, the song is going to be different. Right now, the guy is singing Fuji. When it comes to power, it's going to be Calypso. We've had it several times over that subsidy is a scam, and now we are assuming told that subsidy is costing trillions of naira. So it's neither here nor there. So for me, when Nigerian politicians are actually talking, I believe that they're talking from the two sides of their mouths, until when it gets there, then we now start hearing stories. And people will tell you that, listen, all the salaries of workers, this and that, when they get over there, they're going to clear everything within a twinkle of an eye. Great talk, nice talk, sweet talk, this and that. But those talks are only on the day of the election. After that, it is a different story. They will be told later in the future that we never knew this was as bad as this. We never knew the internal generated revenue is so something. We never knew, every year in Osun State or in the Kogi State or whatever state, people are retiring in their hundreds. This we were never told. This we never knew. So for me, whatever he says is politics.
NLC also is advocating rebuilding or revitalizations of the oil refinery in the country in order to solve this problem of oil subsidy. Do you agree with them? What's your opinion?
No, I don't agree with them. Because for me, allegedly, now, the government said is pumping or has pumped billions of naira to revitalize all these refineries, right? And yet, we're still importing, petrol and all the, buy the crude, products. Like engine oil, like diesel oil, like kerosene, when I was growing up in this country, I remember that, vehicles are even going with kerosene tanks.
Then should government continue to pay subsidy?
It has no choice. Look, even America, the American government subsidizes agriculture. So what are we talking about? There's nowhere in the world that there's nothing called subsidy.
But there should be transparency.
I think our major problem here is the humongous, corruption. Corruption that is already epidemic and endemic. A corruption allegedly that somebody, stole 109 billion naira. And at the end of the day, allegedly has been granted bail, allegedly negotiating. So now say, listen, I was smarter than you guys, and I was able to make all this. So how much do I pay back? If I had to be in China, that guy is dead.
All right, there's another issue that we have to examine because of our time. It's one of the prevailing challenges facing the country. ASU, yes. Travelers stranded as students block Lagos Airport Road, still on ASU. The students, they have taken to the streets now. For protest.
For me, I think if it's peaceful.
What dangers lies ahead now? What needed to be done urgently?
Urgently, I think what the government has to do is the government has to be governmental. The government in Nigeria, whether we want to know it, constitutionally resonates around only one man, Mr. President. End of story. And Mr. President is the most powerful domestic president in the entire world. It is not for anybody who is in that place. It is the constitution of Nigeria. So if Mr. President says today, pay ASU, meet all ASU demands, right? So be it. So Mr. President should please, for God's sake, he's the father of the nation. He should be fatherly. He should do the needful. He should make a U-turn. and then for the futures of our children and children's children, and for the future of this nation. And all these big guys who are showcasing their own children graduating abroad should have a rethink, and so that's just the way I can say it. And any government that is doing well should be allowed to continue, so that at the end of the day, we will not be going, back and forth. So this is the way I say it. Mr. President now should, for God's sake, just become more fatherly. He's been trying his very best, but he should do more. Let him just say, listen, you guys go to, back to classes. What are your demands? I'm going to make 90% of those demands and then survey it.
All right, coming from the Nation newspaper, federal government plans salary raise to cushion inflation effects.
That's the beginning of banana inflation.
What's your take on that?
No, that's the beginning of banana inflation. It's going to be a hyperinflation. It's hyper. First and foremost, we're importing virtually everything. And everything we're importing is domiciled in foreign currencies, right? And then we are a consuming nation. We are not a productive nation. So if you're not increasing salary, what are you saying? It's not from our strength, right? The landlords are going to mark up those, and then let's even leave all those. Everybody knows, the synergic and multiplier ripples that will come out of that.
There's inflations already.
It's going to be hyper.
And the laborers are saying they find it unheasing.
Yes.
To live. To survive. And now,
look, NSC itself, sir, as an organization, is only being helped by this government. Sometimes NSC itself depends on this, oxygen thing to survive. And then when you live, when you go to Abuja, you see the leaders there, you wonder, oh my God, are they still NSC leaders allegedly? So for me, I think when we're talking about raise of salaries, it doesn't make sense.
Okay, what
makes sense, so simple,
exactly,
is that the government should use that money, produce means of transportation for workers to get to work back and forth. Have designated stations where you can pick workers in the morning and bring them back. Then have, like people in uniform, have subsidized, buying centers, malls or whatever in their barracks, where all the goods they buy there will be subsidized. So what I'm thinking about is that let's have a price control, mechanism. Let us start now subsidizing goods. Let us provide this and that. Because what about the people who are self-employed? What about people in small-scale industries? How we do want them to cope? Even with 30,000 naira, some folks are seeing 10,000 per month. So when you now, jump it up to 50,000, so what about those folks? What are people building houses right now? How are they going to be paying the artisans? We need to think about this thing, not just, we just rush at the policy and then say, we jump at it. How many states can afford it? How many states are paying 30,000 right now? And yet, we should not return workers. Return workers, to the already saturated labor market. What do you have? More criminalities all over the place. So for me, I think the government should look at other areas of cushioning the effects of inflation.
Okay, the Vanguard. Northern governors call for state police in relief. Southern governors, do you see agitation for the question of state police?
Well, for me,
as a way of surmounting.
Well, if you say we're practicing presidential system of government, I think for God's sake, let's do it correctly. Okay. State policing is just part of our constitution.
Thank you very much. That is what we can take today on the newspaper, today's program. And special thanks to our guest, a public affairs commentator or analyst, vessel of consultant Sonny Ajayi. Thanks for joining us on the program.
I appreciate it, sir.
Meet my colleagues tomorrow at the same time for a fresh package. I am Adibare H. Makede. Do enjoy your day.
Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Global Events on OSBC Television, where we bring you summary of happenings around the world in the last 1 week. Sit back as you enjoy this week's episode. Temitope Abuharib is my name. The death of Queen Elizabeth II marks both the loss of a revered monarch, the only one most Britons have ever known, and the end of a figure who served as a living link to the glories of World War II Britain, presided over its fitful adjustment to her post-colonial, post-imperial era, and saw it through its bitter divorce from the European Union. Princess Elizabeth was born on the 21st of April 1926 in London and christened on the 29th of May same year as the Buckingham Palace. Elizabeth became heir apparent at the age of 10 when her uncle Edward III abdicated and her father George VI became king. She married Navy Lieutenant Philip Mountbatten, a Greek prince at London's Westminster Abbey. The union produced 4 children. Princess Elizabeth and her husband were on a tour of Africa and Asia in place of her father when the news of the death of her father reached her in Kenya on the 6th of February 1952, paving the way for her to be the first sovereign in more than 200 years to accede